Reddit. What is your weirdest funniest interaction with a celebrity? I'll go first. I don't remember it, but my dad insists this is true. When I was 4 years old I saw Whoopi Goldberg at the grocery store. Mind you, this was in the early 90s, so it was arguably the peak of her career. So approached her and said, "Wow, you're almost as famous as the Ninja Turtles." That's probably the best compliment I've ever heard. I was with a friend who had a film at the Toronto Film Festival many years ago, and we were at the roof restaurant of a private club having a few drinks. Conan O'Brien stumbles over and trips and sort of lands across our table. His buddy pulls him up to maneuver him toward the door, but Conan sweeps his arm over toward us and slurs loudly, "These are my fans." Not me, but my dad was at a conference once and was representing IBM in a booth by himself one weekend years ago in Vancouver. Anyway, just minding his own business. Who comes to ask him questions but the one and only Robin Williams. He was just looking around like any other ordinary guy at the time, as Robin is a total nerd, apparently, and the conversation went something like this. "Robin, so tell me about your products." Dad explains and somehow mentions Windows 98 coming out. "Robin, you don't speak Japanese, do you?" Dad, "Oh heck number." Robin, "The only reason I ask is that I went to Japan and ordered all of this black market software, Windows and stuff, but it all came back in Japanese. Can't use the fricking thing." Dad laughing, "You could always just phone me and I'll get you a free copy." Robin, "Is it because I'm famous?" Dad, "You're famous?" Robin Williams does that "I see what you did there" stare and then laughs. Dad, "Here's my number. Call me this week. English only." And that's how my dad gave Robin Williams pirated 90s software. Believe it or not, Dad does love Robin Williams a whole bunch and was freaking out on the inside, but kept it cool and just joked with him and ended up grabbing coffee the following week and giving him a free copy of Windows 98 he snagged from the office. It's the only claim to fame that my family has, and it's refreshing to know that even celebrities can be down to earth with normal, working class guys. I could get him to relay the conversation they had over coffee, as he said he hasn't laughed harder in his life, but that's another story. As Robin is a total nerd. Apparently, he named his daughter Zelda, as in the video game princess. Of course he's a nerd. I was staying at a hotel in Salt Lake City when I was 17 with family. We were preparing to go to dinner, and I was eager to leave, so I decided to go down the hotel lobby and wait for my parents there. I went to the elevator, got in, and the doors began to close. Right as the doors were about to close, bam, an arm comes shooting in between the doors. The doors retract back to reveal Adam West. He gets in the elevator with me, looks to make sure I'm going to the lobby, smiles, looks at me and says, "Good." After about 4 flights, he looks at me and says, "Man, I'm starving." I reply, "Hell yeah, me too." The doors open. He turns directly to me and says, "Have a good dinner, son," and exits the elevator. No one believed me. And that's how you found out who your real dad is. A couple of years ago my mom was Jennifer Love Hewitt's personal makeup artist for the show Ghost Whisperer. I was sitting in the makeup trailer and Jamie Kennedy walks in, comes up to me, and asks, "Hey dude, boxers or briefs?" Confused, I say, "Boxers." He then laughs and says, "Nope, commando," and proceeds to pull down his pants and completely moons me. I completely lost my crap when he did that. Not mine, but a friend was on a layover in Charlotte, NC on his way home for Christmas when he noticed Samuel L. Jackson standing by himself. Chuck approached the actor and, not wanting to be a squealing fan, says, "Mr. Jackson, I don't mean to bother you, but I just wanted to say I really appreciate your movies. You've done great wonders teaching me how to swear more." Sammy J. chuckles and proceeds to have a nice conversation for a few minutes. My friend turns to leave to catch his flight. As he starts to walk away, Samuel L. Jackson yells across the terminal, "Hey Chuck, Merry fricking Christmas." I interned at a movie studio that was ran by Morgan Freeman. As I was sitting at the front desk, reading scripts and manning the phone, Morgan entered the bathroom. After about 10 minutes, he comes out, starts wafting his arms around, looks me dead in the eye and says, "I'd give it about a year. I pretty much lost it and couldn't remain professional after such a great comment came out of God's mouth." I also met Morgan Freeman. I participate in high school robotics and he showed up at the championships, and there was talk of him coming to meet the Mississippi teams, which is me. I turned around to go to our robot and Morgan goddamn Freeman is staring at me. He asked me what my name was and I said November 23 and laughed nervously. My family is friends with Bruce Springsteen and his family because my mom grew up with him and his siblings, and apparently when I was a baby the first time he held me I peed on him. Cat law says you own Bruce Springsteen. Get a cat lawyer and go collect some checks, buddy. I saw Tracy Morgan walking down the street in New York City. I shouted to my friend, "Hey, it's Tracy Morgan." Tracy hears me, turns around and says, "Oh crap," where and looks around, then continues walking. This is hilarious. Not a direct interaction, but this still amuses me. I was interning at CNN Washington during what I like to call Monica in the summer of the blue dress. Wolf Blitzer was reporting on the infamous stained dress for the first time and I was in the production booth, the room with all the TVs, watching. When he went off air, it was still on screen in the production room. He sort of hung his head and said, "I hate this story a little more each day." Till Wolf Blitzer is human. At Bonnaroo I met Zach Braff. He had just gotten done doing a Q&A for Garden State, and I was waiting in line to go to Aziz Ansari's Q&A for 30 minutes or less, which was right after Braff's thing. Well, Braff leaves his Q&A and sees people waiting outside for Aziz. He is on the opposite side of the fence, so none of us can reach him. He hops on top of a garbage can that was against the fence, so that you could see only the top half of his body. I was the first one to spot him, so I run over to him as fast as I possibly can. I climb a different trash can against the fence, and me and Zach Braff are literally inches away from each other, a fence the only thing in between us. We look at each other, he laughs. He grabs both my hands and whispers into my ear, "I'll never let you go, Jack. I'll never let you go." He then hugs me, waves at everyone rushing towards him, and hops down from the garbage can, and vanishes. What an awesome guy. He seemed so excited to see his fans. He had the biggest smile on his face. I was flying to Japan when I was very young. Being in an airport and having to wait made me very agitated. I began throwing a tantrum and the man beside me asked if he could play with me and my toys. Little did I know that man was Jackie Chan. This warms my heart so much. My family and I bumped into Richard Simmons in Italy while waiting to see Michelangelo's David. After getting a picture with him, he looked my dad in the eyes and said, "You are just a lovely man," and kissed him on the lips. A what? Was watching a US World Cup match in a hotel bar in Frankfurt when a familiar looking redhead walks in and stands at the bar next to my friend and I. He had a wheelie suitcase with him and a fully stuffed backpack on, so I figured he was on his way to the airport and stopping in to catch the game before hopping on the S-Bahn. I made some flippant comment about the match to him. I think it was US v Bra, and he returned the sarcasm, so I offered to buy him a drink. He grins and says, "Yeah sure, why not?" So I order the beers. We chat and as he finishes up he says, "I have to catch a train. It was nice talking with you." And I say, "It was great chatting with you too, Alan." Then he kinda stares at me and asks how long I'd known who he was. I grin and say the entire time, and he gives me a big ol' hug and says, "Thanks for being quiet about it," and was on his way. TLDR. Bought Alan Tudyk a beer while he was promoting Serenity in Germany and he's a seriously awesome dude. I'm really pleased Alan Tudyk is an awesome dude. He always seemed so awesome. My friend and I always call out everyday people that we think look like famous people. Example, see a redhead, "Hey look, it's Ron Howard." We were in a bar in Boston and I saw the guy at the bar and I go, "Hey look, it's Sean Penn." She goes, "Bad call, looks nothing like him." I look closer and go, "Holy crap, it is Sean Penn." So I go up and thinking I am all cool I start talking to the guy who was with him. Sean eventually just turns to me, puts out his hand and says, "Hi, I'm Sean. I am dying inside but trying to play it cool." We start talking and I tell him how I am a big fan of his but also his brother Michael Penn, musician. He proceeds to pull out his cell phone, call his brother, and he hands me the phone. So I am talking to Michael Penn on Sean Penn's cell phone. Michael tells me to call Sean, i.e. cause he hates that. I do it and Sean cracks up laughing. Seriously, one of the best nights of my life, and why Sean Penn will always be okay in my book. Weird, I had always heard Sean Penn was in Butthole. Got high with Kelly Osbourne and listened to her talk speakerphone with her father. They may be the one case of reality television portraying people accurately. Sting came into the strip club where I worked. I didn't speak to him, though I did see him and he wasn't up to dress code. Shorts, flip-flops. Who the frick wears flip-flops in a strip club? But he's Sting, and celebrities can be good for business. He went into a private room with some of the dancers. Some of the waitresses were complaining about him, asking for comps, not tipping, being grabby, etc. Then a few of the dancers complained. The GM had heard enough. He confronted him and Sting threw a hissy fit. GM told him he had to leave. Sting starts leaving but is throwing out standard celebrity threats. I'll ruin this freaking club. I'm going to tell everyone how I was treated here, etc. As Sting neared the exit, the GM waited for just the right second to have the last word and yelled, "Stay the frick out of my club. I don't care if you are Rod Stewart." I like to think, of all the things you could say to an egotistical celebrity, misidentifying him has to hurt the worst. I love that Grams. Careful, he could have called the police. Paris Hilton gave me a ride home. Well, her driver, not her, but she was in the car. We all left a club in LA and were all drunk. She said she thought my friends and I were cool and didn't want us to pay for a cab home, so she dropped us all off. Needless to say, it was a funny night. I've only ever met one famous person, and funnily enough no one ever believes me. I got on a really busy subway train in Glasgow a few years back and quickly grabbed the only seat left. I sat for a good 5 minutes minding my own business before asking the guy next to me if I could have his newspaper when he was finished with it. It turns out that guy was Michael Keaton. Hey, yeah sure, and handed me the paper right away. I couldn't even read. I pretended to, but all I could think was holy frick. TLDR. Batman. After that TLDR, I had to go back and read the whole thing. My brother was at Comic-Con and went to the bathroom and was taking a leak at the urinal. He looks and sees it's pretty much empty, so he lets out a huge fart. Then he hears, "Right back at you bro," and a huge fart come from the stalls. Washes his hands and Jason Mewes walks out of the stall. Having met Jason, I don't doubt this at all. I was at the Book of Mormon last March and sat right next to John Stamos. Hearing him laugh was like seeing the musical and watching Full House at the same time. He signed my playbill, and then on my way out I met Trey Parker and he signed it too, but halfway over John's signature, on purpose. I posted this once before but it bears repeating. One night I was downtown playing music on the square. I looked up as a couple walked past and realized it was Paul McCartney and his laddie friend. I remember saying something like, "How's it going, Paul? Want a cigarette?" He replied, "No thanks. I don't smoke, but how about a song?" As we're walking past, so I played Don't Think Twice by Bob Dylan and he sat next to me and sang the whole thing. Then he got up, gave my shoulder a squeeze and said thanks, "See you," or something to that effect. As he walked away I played the opening notes to Day Tripper and he shook his finger at me and made a noise like, "Hey now, that's one of mine." It wasn't till a few minutes later that the gravity of what had just happened really sank in. Probably the coolest jam session I'll ever have. I was in Wells, Somerset around 2004 and bumped into Simon Pegg, who, I later discovered, was location scouting for Hot Fuzz. The current Mrs. Mitz and myself were rather hungry and were looking at going to the pub for a meal, except Simon Pegg was in the way of the menu before the doorway. "Peggy, shifted," says I. "Sorry," he mumbles and moves out of the way, talking away to someone on the phone. The pub, by the way, is featured in Hot Fuzz. Their food was meh. TLDR. Told Simon Pegg to shift out of the way and he obeyed. Someone has told this story before. It better have been you. Frankly, I'm too lazy to check. Harrison Ford asked me and my dad for directions. We were filling up the car at a local gas station, and a big, white SUV pulls up close to us. A tall man gets out, and Dad realizes he's walking up to us, so he stops, turns around, and has the "holy crap, it's Harrison Ford" moment. Ford was really nice, and asked us for directions to the airport. My dad, being a jokester, told him that he never expected Indiana Jones to be lost in a little town like Morristown. To which Harrison replied, Indiana Jones has been lost several times, sir. Thanks for the directions. Great day. Nobody has met a rapper. My best mate managed a bar in London. This was just after the smoking ban had come into play. It was a nice gig with plenty of richer people and the occasional B-lister making an appearance. One night, however, Snoop Dogg books the entire VIP area out for him and his entourage. They buy out all the champers, so my mate has to go get some more. Party like madmen. The usual. When my mate comes back in, he sees the barman looking a bit uncomfortable and he asks what's up. Snoop Dogg is smoking. Fancy that. The dog has a freaking gigantic Cuban in his mouth and he's puffing away. Well, the law being the law and my mate not wanting to lose his license, he goes over to Snoop. Hi Mr. Dog. I hate to inform you that smoking is illegal in clubs and bars now, so you'll have to extinguish your cigar or you'll be fined. Snoop looks at him like he's taking the pee, sighs and says, "Mother sucker, how much is the fine?" £2,000. He just hands my mate £2,000 and keeps smoking. I've either seen you tell this exact story or Snoop Dogg does this to a lot of places. TL.DR. Main chick from movie Soul Surfer is a bee and tried to close the elevator on us. Helen Hunt came to the rescue and put the bee in her place. The movie Soul Surfer was being filmed at the Turtle Bay Resort, Hawaii, North Shore, while I was there for my wedding. Soon-to-be wife and I had gotten a room by ourselves for a day before we moved over to a house we were renting. In the morning, we noticed them filming out on the beach and see the, admittedly extremely hot, main character chick and Helen Hunt filming some stupid scene, so we knew they were there. Fast forward about 7 hours, late that afternoon, we are heading up to our room from the bar. We are walking to the elevators, and lo and behold, blonde star chick was in the elevator. She proceeds to lean over and hammer the close door button after glancing and giving us a dirty look. The door starts to close as we are walking fast, walking up to it. We are fricked. This bee just purposely did the close door maneuver on us. Nope. Helen Hunt to the rescue. She surprisingly was also in the elevator. Didn't see her. Jumps forward and sneaks her arm into the door, holding it open for us. Awkwardly silent elevator ride ensues. It makes me kinda sad to hear that Anna Sophia Robb is a B-I-roll. I loved her in Bridge to Terabithia. I've tried telling this story on a different thread but it got buried, so I'm just gonna copy it here because it needs to be seen. I went to go see The Artist on my own. It's up for all these awards. I thought I should see it while it's still in theaters. It's been out where I live for so long. So I go this theater close to where I live in Hollywood. It's really nice and has assigned seating so I can just show up right as the movie starts. No awkwardly sitting alone. And it's like the middle of the week. Tuesday or Wednesday and it's around 10:30 AM. I tried to pick the most likely time to be the only one there. So I get there just a few minutes before the movie and no one is there and I'm so excited that the one employee comes in and does his little welcome to our client. Let me advertise crap you don't care about speech and then the previews start and I'm in the clear. But halfway through the second trailer a guy came in and I kind of annoyed but he was by himself too so I didn't feel as judged. But then he sat right behind me and it was intentional. Because when you buy your ticket you can see where other people are sitting. So I'm trying to ignore the fact some douche would do this. I'm thinking I should turn around and shoot him a quick haha. Well frick you look. So I do. And I just freeze kind of shocked. It was George Clooney and he seemed to think this whole thing was entirely hilarious. And now it was. He said sorry and that he couldn't resist and said he'd move seats if I didn't want him behind me. But I told him I didn't care. And then the rest of the movie was fairly awkward but in an okay way. After the movie we walked out together and that was probably the weirdest thing of my life but frick yeah. I see celebrities there all the time but this was just nuts. Not my own interaction, but my friends. I'll post it anyways. So my friend and his dad were at a restaurant when the singer Bjork walks past them. The dad says loudly and awkwardly, "Hey, look son, it's freaking Bjork." Bjork looked at them with killer eyes and said, "I am not a caged animal." Bjork did kung fu in NYC for a bit at my temple. When you make eye contact with her, her little pixie eyes bore right through you. She was kinda shy and pretty cool with everyone. I was working at a bar where David Carradine was to make an appearance. He comes in early in the day to do an interview with the media and pump his tires, but before this begins he asks me for a glass and a bottle of Grey Goose, pours himself an entire glass of vodka, no ice, downs it in the span of the interview. As he's walking out, I'm running some cups through the washer and he looks at me and says you must hate your job, and walks out. Later that evening, he misses his appearance by an hour, so my managers hurry to his hotel and find him passed right out. He eventually makes it, still wasted, and offers some nonsensical musings about acting and how much of an icon he is. A few weeks later he was found dead in Bangkok. What a guy. It's not your fault. Don't get too hung up on it. I was browsing CDs in Zellers with two of my friends when some guy sticks his head between me and my friend and says, "Only buy Michael Buble CDs," and starts walking away. We turned around and noticed it was him shopping with his, I think, sister and her baby. My friend got his autograph because she was a big fan, and then we just left him alone and kept shopping. A few minutes later, as he is buying something at the counter, the cashier asks, "Are you Michael Buble?" and he goes, "Yeah," points at me, and that's Britney Spears. Not sure if he was flirting or just being weird. Either way, he's a funny guy. TLDR, Michael Buble shops in Zellers and has a sense of humor about it. My brother was an aspiring actor, and he got a few gigs working as an extra on a couple Disney shows. He worked as an extra on Sweet Life, Hannah Montana, etc. Well, when he was working as an extra on Wizards of Waverly Place, he became close with Selena Gomez. This was back when the show was out for a couple months, and society didn't obsess over Selena, but people would still know who she was. Anyways, I walk home and what do I see? My little brother making out with Selena Gomez. I start laughing like the douche older bro I am, and crap got awkward. Selena just left the house in embarrassment. Flew without my parents when I was 9-10. They put me in first class because I was so young. My dad is a huge Manchester United fan and I happened to be wearing their home kit on the flight. A foreign guy asks me if I'd like him to sign it. I thought it was weird and creepy and said no. Later realized it was Eric Cantona. My dad was genuinely pee when I told him. Imagine that though. You're a world famous footballer, and you are in a good mood, so just trying to be nice you offer to sign a kid's shirt. Then he shuts you down and your good mood is killed, and you spend the rest of your day questioning your worth. This will get buried, but it's a good story. When I was a wee lad, my father kind of sucked. Well, really sucked. So at one point in my childhood, I decided to recruit a new father, Jack Tripper, from Three's Company. To my child brain, he'd be the coolest dad in the world, so I wrote to John Ritter, asking him to be my new dad, and he wrote back about 1,000 times. See, over the next several years, I wrote to him several times a week, and he answered each and every letter, not with a form letter and a picture, but an actual letter asking about how I was doing in school, giving me advice, etc. In short, I sort of hijacked John Ritter as a father. We kept in touch until I went off to college. I didn't cry when my real dad died, but John Ritter's death tore me up. That man is God. I've told this story before, but I stole Justin Timberlake's watch when I was about 10 years old. It honestly came out of nowhere. Didn't even think about it, just kinda happened. Not my story, but hilarious nonetheless. My friend, who we'll call Connor for this story, went to Sundance last year because one of his friends had a supporting role in one of the movies that they were showing. They had VIP access to places, but he still had difficulty getting into clubs because he was a few months shy of 21. He waited in line with his friend for this one particularly hopping club for nearly an hour, got to the front, only to be turned away by the bouncer. Instead of leaving, he drunkenly argued with the bouncer for several minutes. After a while of this, the guy waiting in line behind Connor finally says something along the lines of "Hurry the frick up." At this, Connor turns to him and says, "Shut the frick up, Steven Tyler." The bouncer finally lets Connor and his friend in. Once inside, his friend turns to Connor and says, "You know that guy you called Steven Tyler? That was Tommy Lee." Connor didn't care, and that wasn't the last interaction he had with a celebrity that weekend. Alright, it's been 6 hours. I'll put you out of your misery. Go on. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.